Over 400 million cups of coffee are consumed every single day in America. And the truth is, many people are silently having really bad reactions to it. Are you one of them? Let's find out. But before we get started, I'm Dr. Nick Zyrowski, and I started my holistic health practice in order to help you take control of your health naturally, because everybody knows true health only comes naturally. Hey wellness warriors, we hear all the time that coffee has tons of amazing benefits, which it does. But the problem is we never hear about the negative side effects that it also has. And these negative side effects are very important to your health. The bad part was over the years I started developing a little bit of a love-hate relationship with coffee. Sure, I loved a warm cup of joe, but the problem was I didn't really like the way it made me feel. As I started to become a little bit more in tune with my body and the way that certain beverages and foods made me feel, I realized that there was something wrong. So I started to dive into the negative side effects of coffee, and what I realized is that based on your genetics, coffee may be ruining your day. So from there I did a genetics test, and I was really excited to get the raw data back to see how my body was wired. But the funny thing was that after I got the data back from my genetics test, I was a little bit disappointed because it was a lot of just fun information, where my origins are from, whether or not I'll have a unibrow one day. But the truth is, it gave me nothing about my overall health. And then I realized from there, the FDA actually stops these companies from giving health data because it has to come from a healthcare practitioner. This is what led me down even a further path of genetics and really mastering that territory. My first concern that I realized both for myself and many of the patients I worked with is that caffeine in coffee caused a lot of sleep issues for us. This led me to a very specific gene known as the cytochrome P450-1A2. Now, if you have this particular genotype, it means that you are a slow caffeine metabolizer. And the bad thing is if you have it, it can take you between 2.5 hours and 10 hours to metabolize caffeine from just one cup of coffee. To give you some concept, for somebody who doesn't have this particular genotype, they can metabolize a cup of coffee, the caffeine from it, in simply 1 hour. Over the summer, I was going out to the lake with my family, and I was really dragging. So I was like, you know what, let's stop by Starbucks when we drive by and I'll get myself a nice big large iced coffee. Because hey, I need to have energy to keep up with the kids, so that's what I did. I got this, it was about 3 in the afternoon, I drank it, figured, you know what, I got plenty of time to work on this coffee, my body will handle it, and heck, I'm gonna be running around, really active, we'll metabolize through this thing. Problem is, I didn't, and it was a disaster. I literally was up all night, my brain racing, and I literally was physically exhausted, but my brain wouldn't turn off. If you are a slow caffeine metabolizer, coffee needs to only be a very early afternoon or morning drink for you. Sleep is just one thing, but it gets way worse. You're like, Dr. Zyrowski, could it get any worse? Yes, it gets worse. According to the research, individuals under the age of 50, just for having this one single genotype, who drank 4 cups of coffee a day, had a 4-fold increase in myocardial infarctions. Okay, this is under 50 years old. This one particular gene correlated with coffee is going to increase your risk of a myocardial infarction. That's huge. And yes, there's still more. What investigators found in the way of hypertension is also pretty alarming. If you have this genotype and you drink 4 cups of coffee per day, you have a 3-fold risk of having hypertension. If you drink 1 to 3 cups of coffee per day and you have this genotype, you have a 1.72-fold increased risk of getting hypertension. What the researchers say, if you have this particular genotype, you should abstain from drinking coffee in order to reduce the risk of both hypertension and myocardial infarction. I know, this coffee conversation is getting way too serious, but this next one is even more of a problem because this particular gene actually can change the perception of your entire world around you. And with a country drinking 400 million cups of coffee a year, I think this one's very important. And why is this all relevant? Because those who have the adenosine A2A genotype have another problem on their hands. Their problem is that this genotype reacts very poorly with caffeine and causes something called caffeine-induced anxiety. In a study of 150 people, what they found is that when these individuals with this particular genotype drank caffeine, they all reported back that they developed anxiety with it. Now, to give you a little bit of a fun fact, I not only have one of these genotypes, but I have both of them. This particular genotype has been linked to intensifying stress and even going as far as causing panic attacks when combined with coffee. And what the research shows is that the more caffeine, the more coffee these people drank, the more anxiety that it equaled. What I found is that me personally, if I woke up in the morning and on an empty stomach I drank coffee, it was bad news, because it equaled really bad anxiety. With all that information, there's a few major changes that I made. First of all, I don't drink nearly as much coffee as I used to. I mean, I'm down to like a half a cup a day. And in many cases, I'm drinking a decaf. The other thing that I did is that I don't drink coffee on an empty stomach under any circumstances, because I always find that if I drink coffee on an empty stomach first thing in the morning, it creates more anxiety for me for the entire day. The last thing is that I do not drink coffee anytime past 2 in the afternoon, because that caffeine can take up to 10 hours to actually metabolize and work its way out of my system. And by the way, if you want to get a powerful nutrigenomic report that outlines not only this information we're talking about these particular genes, but so many more that impact your daily life, what you can do is shoot me a text and I'll set you up with the right information as to how to get started. Now, the next question we have to consider is, can coffee actually make you fat? Because I actually tell people all the time that coffee can support the weight loss process, but I might be wrong. This first piece of research that I want to look at is pretty interesting, because what it shows us is that coffee can actually boost our metabolism by as much as 13%. Now, this is pretty compelling, but as you look a little bit further, it's a little bit scary actually, because in order to boost your metabolism by 13%, you have to drink 4.5 milligrams of caffeine per pound of body weight. So essentially what this means is that a 150-pound person would have to consume 7 cups of coffee. Geez, that would kill me if I drank 7 cups of coffee to boost my metabolism by 13%. I'm gonna basically find this research to be not very compelling. Now let's take a look at some research that is more compelling, and that's using coffee as an appetite suppressant. Now this is the angle that I always take personally, because I mean, sure, you might use coffee to boost your metabolism by a few percentage points, not real exciting, but if you can use it as an appetite suppressant, that's pretty powerful. According to the research, it suppresses a hunger hormone known as ghrelin. This hunger hormone, when suppressed, is going to basically cause you to eat fewer calories throughout the entire day, and that's pretty powerful. But we're not out of the woods yet with this, because the other thing we know about coffee is that it actually can affect your sleep. And when it has an impact on your sleep, and let's say you get really poor sleep a particular night, what research shows is that it causes you to eat more calories throughout the entire day. And the other thing that we know is that if coffee messes up your sleep, it can actually increase cortisol, and when you increase cortisol, that is research linked and proven to cause you to eat more calories throughout the day too. So we have to be very careful. This is a slippery slope. Now, if you're somebody who's drinking lattes or a similar variation of that, you also have to be careful, because there's a lot of calories in these beverages. I myself got into a little bit of a latte habit one time, and I noticed I was putting on weight really fast all of a sudden. Here's the problem, is that many of these lattes can contain upwards of 300 plus calories. And when you think about that, that's basically throwing in a 4th meal a day. So you're looking at it as it's just a beverage, but yet it's truly a 4th meal, because once you start having those lattes, you're likely going to overconsume calories every day, which leads to weight gain. We also have to be really careful of the quality of coffee that we're drinking. Coffee is a beverage that's typically consumed while hot. When we look at coffee, it is considered to be the 2nd most chemically treated crop on the planet. It's estimated that they use 250 pounds of chemicals to treat 1 acre of coffee beans. If you take that chemically treated coffee and then you combine it with water that's just plain old tap water that has chlorine and pharmaceuticals and fluoride and other toxins in it, and you take all those toxins and consume that as one of the first beverages you drink during the day, that is a toxic elixir playing on your genetic weaknesses, and it's not good. We always want to make sure that we're using organic coffee and purified water. It all comes down to knowing your body and strategizing around you as an individual. To learn more about my keto coffee recipe, or whether or not you can have bulletproof coffee while fasting, click here or here.